So welcome to Different Strategies to the Development of Paid Content. Come on up, look at this eager crew. Please welcome Nikolay Malyarov. That would be this gentleman right here. He's EVP, Chief Content Officer and General Counsel, PressReader, based in my hometown of Vancouver. Alexander Klöpping right there, founder of Blendle. You may have heard of them in this conference, Blendle, killing it in the Netherlands and soon all over the world, we hope. And last but not least, Kris Nagel, SVP and monetization industry expert. Thank goodness you're joining us on this panel. From Vindicia, is that right? Or Vindicia?
Vindicia.
Vindicia.
Yeah,
cool.
Somewhere in the middle.
All right, emphasis on the wrong syllable, sorry. Okay, from the US of A. So I will ask you gentlemen just to take a minute or so and introduce yourselves and your business to the crowd here.
Let me just see if this slides. Yeah, perfect. So we're PressReader. PressReader doesn't really require much introduction. We've been a brand partner of FIPP for the last couple of years. So I want to show you a little bit of our vision as to how we see the industry is evolving. We believe that today's readers are calling the shots. And they're calling the shots because they decide on how, when, and where they want to consume content. And in that content consumption, it's the passions that propel the readers in deciding what content they read and where they read it. So we believe in putting readers first. Because only by putting readers first, it's not focusing necessarily on the digital first, the mobile first, or whatever the other first is, it's the reader first. Because understanding the reader will allow us to build the one-on-one relationships with the audiences once we understand what they like and how they like to consume that content. By the same token, the content distribution landscape has evolved. The readers are incredibly mobile, and only by making the content borderless, shareable, searchable, can it be monetizable. We believe in going beyond subscriptions and focusing on user engagement. And in that user engagement, we'll allow to extend the brand into the experiential bits, where you go beyond the traditional advertising and subscription sales. This is an example of what Future does, for instance, with the cross-promotional opportunities and in partnering with, say, Canon and Kodak for the photography show and the awards that they do, building on the awareness of the brand and the credibility that they've built. And you can commercialize these engaged communities, and this is an example of what Vancouver Sun, one of our partners in the hometown of Vancouver, is doing by engaging the community in a 10-kilometer run every single year with thousands and thousands of people run, including, you see, yours truly. We believe in maximizing engagement with consumers wherever they are and whatever platform they choose. That's PressReader.
Fantastic, thank you. Kris?
Great. Actually, I do not have slides, and I may ask someone from the audience to repeat my 100-second pitch from this morning. The Vindicia and our partners are very focused on creating compelling content, compelling engagement, and then monetizing that content and engagement. So we are here with Marketing G2. We have a stand right out front, but essentially we're looking at how do we engage the user in an experience that will bring them through a purchase cycle, a purchase process. We are trying to convert those users to paying users, and you aren't going to convert everybody, so you have to be very fundamentally sound about your core business, your core free business, convert people through a path of freemium kinds of services, through transactional purchase services, and hopefully on to subscription and membership kinds of services. And so our approach is very much best practice and data-driven analysis. I think we've heard the word data many times over the last couple of days, but I'm a big believer. We've got 220 million user accounts in our database across 250 media and publishing companies in around the world, and we work with our clients to help provide the right products and services to increase what we talk about as average customer lifetime value, getting the most out of that user, whether they want to be a free user or a premium membership user, but maximizing the value of that user over their lifetime.
Great. Alexander, tell us a little bit about Blendle, other than it's not one pass.
Yeah, it isn't. That's very much true. So I'm one of the two founders of Blendle. My other guy is Martin, and he's in Germany right now because we launched there about a month ago. And our plan from the beginning was we were both journalists. Martin was a journalist writing for a couple of Dutch newspapers. I was a technology journalist. And at some point we started thinking, right, there's a lot of things that are not going well in this industry. We started thinking, what would we build? If we could start from scratch and have all of this beautiful journalism that's being made in Holland and Germany and in so many more places, what if we could take that and basically build something that we wanted to use ourselves? And we started building Blendle, the prototype. This is 2 years ago. Right now we're a 70-person company with more than 30 developers. But at the time it was just me and Martin, and we were sketching these things in Photoshop. But it came to one idea, one website where you can read all newspapers and magazines, only pay for the stuff that you're interested in, and get your money back if you didn't like it, and at the same time not needing a subscription and having a filtering system that recommends stuff for you that's interesting for you. So whether that's a friend sharing a story, or whether that's an algorithm saying this is really cool for you right at this moment of the day, or a journalist saying this is interesting, basically filter for you out of all of these premium sources and never paying more than you need to, which is also great for publishers because they tend to keep 70% of what we make.
Nice. So it's a 70 publisher, 30% you guys model.
Yeah, we
Awesome.
stole that from a bigger technology company.
Good. Yes. Very good. That's the way to do it. Okay. Well, let's get right into it. Big philosophical question to start. Does online content want to be free by its very nature? And if it does, is sort of the attention as a currency enough to keep the lights on and feed our families? Nikolay, we'll start with you.
So much content is commoditized. You know, I mean, if we look at, and we're talking about content that's sort of a written word, not necessarily sort of music or video. And if we're in the business of news and producing news, well, news is a commodity. So it's by its nature and by the way the content is distributed, I think it wants to be free. The long-form journalism has an ability to draw attention of users who are prepared to pay for it, either through all-you-can-read packages or perhaps even single article purchases. But at the end of the day, none of these channels, none of these methods of monetizing content are a saving grace. It's a combination, I think, in terms of how that content can get monetized. That's important.
Okay. Kris, what are your thoughts?
I think there is, especially in daily news feeds, the commoditization is absolutely true. But I do believe, and our clients can attest to it, that there is a variety of different approaches to monetizing content. I think we tend to think about things as black or white. Is it free or is it paid? But there are many steps in between free and paid, right? Paid subscription, if you will. So understanding who your end user or end reader is and providing them the ability to purchase what they want when they want, pay for it in the way they want to at the given point in time, and providing them premium kinds of offers and content bundling, you can absolutely justify a premium price, right? I think we've seen great examples. Politico, I think yesterday was a great example. National Geographic. It may not be about monetizing the specific piece of content, but it's the experience of that content viewership.
Right. Good. What yourself, Alexander?
Like we now see because we ingest everything from these sources, right? So in Germany we have over 120 newspapers and magazines now. It's basically every newspaper we see in an airport newsstand will be there. And now we can see very well what kind of content sells well. And it's interesting because what we notice is that the stuff that tends to work well is not the stuff that normally works well on the internet, which like publishers always think that because now you can buy separate articles in Holland and in Germany, they think, all right, it's going to be the sex, what we call shooting tits and helicopters. I don't know, that translates better in Dutch than to English, but anyway,
I think it does.
the stuff that works really well tends to be not the most advanced stuff. But because we have the money-back guarantee thing, a funny side effect is that if you do clickbaity stuff, suddenly I realized that this is going to be translated in Japanese and in Chinese too, which is very funny. But anyway, when people can ask for their money back, we see that when there is content that's clickbaity, that stuff will be refunded in very high amounts. So we see sometimes 70% of people refunding when there's some gossip article or something that promises something that doesn't deliver. At the same time, when there's a beautiful journalistic piece which is well researched, refund levels go down a lot. And when you see then what stays on the top of what gets sold very well, it's the background pieces, the long-form analysis. It is really a good explainer on what's happening in Syria. That becomes trending on Blendle. In the top 10, it's very vivid, good journalism that survives, and people are willing to pay for that stuff. And sometimes publishers seem to think that the only way is to dumb down. There's a lot of publishers who do that. But we see exactly the opposite, which makes my journalistic heart very happy.
Yeah, good. And just putting you on the spot here, because we didn't rehearse this, but what are the top 3 most popular, bestsellers for Blendle to date?
Today you mean?
No, to date, over the
until now.
Of Blendle.
All right, so the best sold article was an article that was a Dutch writer who died actually a couple of months ago now. And he gave his last interview to a Dutch magazine. And that story did really well because the magazine asked us, can you already put it on Blendle? Because we're a monthly and it will only come out in 3 weeks. And we don't want to put it on the web for free, which I can understand.
So it was an exclusive?
Yes.
Yeah.
And this did, people couldn't stop talking about this piece, and suddenly I started thinking, all right, this is interesting, because you can now, if you have this exclusive content, you can now start, it's for anything, the Caitlyn Jenner story for Vanity Fair, for example, I was thinking about that kind of pieces of content, atomized, it works really well. So that was the bestseller, and the second one was reconstruction of the Malaysian Airways flight that was shut down, where a lot of Dutch people were involved. So it's heavy pieces. And what we also see is that I think the number 3 is an article on it's some lifestyle thing about food and how you can eat more healthy, but a very well researched one at that time. So it's a balance of those things. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we tend to gravitate toward, as far as paid content goes, publishers tend to gravitate towards, a paywall, some sort of metered attempt at a paywall, or in-app subscriptions. Those are not exactly taking the world by storm. Is there a way to do that better that people are missing, or is there another model that we can look at? Nikolay, why don't we start with you?
I think I alluded to the answer to this question in my previous response, is that the diversification
You can't recycle responses.
I'm sorry.
It's in the fine print.
Well,
of
it's
the
like
agreement.
with content, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right. Yes, you can.
if you recycle it,
Just charge us for it. Yeah.
people will catch on. But it's the diversification of models, right? There is no single profitable channel in which the publisher can sell their content. And it's, but look, I mean, there is a reason why I focus so much on the reader, is that you need to understand your reader and what the passions that reader has. And then if you understand where that reader is, and that reader is now everywhere, so the only way to reach that reader everywhere is to be everywhere. I mean, it's as simple as that. I think the question of monetization, it's not necessarily that piece of content that you've produced that will be monetizable in every single channel. Perhaps some channels will require free access to that content. But experimentation, we don't experiment much as an industry. We're very slow to adapt as an industry, and I think that needs to change.
Mm-hmm. Kris, are you seeing anything anything that sort of qualifies as innovation in the in-app sub or potentially paywall space?
Yeah, paywall, we actually have a number of paywall replacement projects going on. The problem with paywall is it tends to be extremely generic, right? One purchase price for one particular article with 300 payment methods presented, and the abandonment of that particular process is huge. Versus a recurring or a subscription-related service where you're very, very targeted, to your point, with the data that you have about that user. And so we will go through kind of a series of best practices with clients where we look at things like, where is this user in their life cycle with you? Are they just getting started? Do we present to them a free offer? Are they already a customer, or have they purchased something in the past? Can we leverage that purchase knowledge of what they were interested in to present to them a compelling offer? Or is it somebody that's just unhappy and leaving? And how can we save them in leaving that process? So it's a more sophisticated approach. The same thing with offer personalization. I mentioned this before, the idea of giving that user ability to get what they want, pay for it how they want, and watch it when they want to, as opposed to this kind of mass-produced kind of approach. For us, frictionless purchase is very, very successful. So you've got to have some means of identifying a user, and that can be done through machine or through user input. But once you know that, take the Amazon model of it's very easy to purchase a product from Amazon basically anywhere you are, and now I can do it in my laundry room apparently. So that whole very frictionless one-click purchase paradigm for content is extremely important. Yeah. And it's a great way also to upsell from base subscription kinds of services.
Nice. Alice, you and I, when we did our call, discussed this like horrible storefront generic. It's not a very welcoming request to ask someone for money. Are there ways that Blendle and what you're seeing in the marketplace, others that are really kind of amping up their game in that Amazon model?
Yeah, I'm always comparing what we do with what other tech companies do. And when you just look at onboarding flows of tech companies, the way they register new users, the way they entice users to pay for something, like there's a lot of tech companies that do a lot of things to optimize that and experiment a lot with that. Think like, all right, what happens if we start with a landing page that explains the product versus a very emotional landing page? Or what happens if we instantly ask for money or do it for free? Or what happens when we first let someone try it or block the page like Netflix does? And there is obviously there is always publishers who do a lot of testing and optimizing, but it almost seems that the bigger publishers do this, so New York Times does this, and there's a lot of big publishers that do that. But it almost seems that when a publisher is smaller, they have the feeling that that's not for them, or that's out of reach for them. But with the tools nowadays, it's so incredibly easy to optimize these things, and there is really no excuse for having a sign-up page or a subscription page that is a long form that doesn't look like the rest of the website. And I don't understand why this still happens so often. And this is step one. It's putting the user central, as you said, and trying to optimize that as much as possible by just figuring out what will your user do and what will he like, and let's test that. So that's one. User experience is incredibly important in this. And when you take that as a first step, then you can build other experiments out of that. But it really needs to start with that. So we do one-click pay, and we think that works really well. But it doesn't work without the money-back guarantee thing, for example. Right. It doesn't work if we suddenly, to start with, already ask for a credit card for people, because we now know that we need to give people $2.50 to start with, because that feels like a comfortable amount, and I can send enough emails to that user saying, have you heard about this? Have you tried this? Maybe you should figure this out. And the whole combination of touch points with the user makes the user engaged and spend more money on the long term. But that's only because we start from this very, very single point of optimizing the beginning. And it almost seems that not enough publishers try that. Cool. It's easy nowadays. Everyone can do it.
Nice, great. Sorry, if I'm just getting like whispers up here, so if I can get you guys to stop, I feel like I'm in a frickin' Lost episode. That'd be awesome. Thanks. Okay, let's throw it out to the audience here. Do you guys have any questions, or does everybody know how to make money off of content? You're all good? Awesome. Congratulations. Any questions? Up here, yes.
Alexander, Can you describe how you got all the Dutch publishers to agree to come on, and then how you got all the Germans, and how is this Alexander the Great?
Yeah, it was sleeping bags in lobbies of publishers, definitely. Now, honestly, there was a point. It took a long time, and there was a point that we tried to convince the biggest publisher in Holland, the Persgroep, and I remember going finally to the CEO's office. And the first thing he told me was, I hope you brought your stamp card because you can put your last stamp on my face now because you basically talk to everyone in this company. And it was true. I talked to everyone in the company. Like I spoke to more Persgroep people than my own mother. So it was a lot of talking. And especially in the beginning when we didn't have a product yet, it was just an idea with a prototype. It was hard convincing them. But then when the prototype came along and people see the product and they try the product, that's the moment that they truly understand it. Because on paper, when you see it on paper, Blendle looks pretty bad. I mean, the idea that you have to pay per article, that you have to decide every time if you want to buy an article, and this becomes like a mental thing. It sounds annoying on paper. But the moment that you try it, you figure out, all right, it's pretty frictionless and blah, 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 and then you start understanding it. And with every publisher until now, the thing that happens is that in the beginning, they're like, yeah, we'll see, and this doesn't look, like, they're not very enthusiastic when I come in most of the time, but then we show what's happening, or how it works, and then they're like, all right, let's try this. Not much to lose. Let's see how much revenue it generates. And now after a year in Holland, we see the results, right? We now know how much revenue it's generating for publishers. We now know, what does email do as opposed to the social graph? Do people read stories because it's in the news, or do people pay for stories because it's specifically tailored to them? And now we have data that we can show to German publishers and say, this is probably what you'll make at the end of the year, considering the growth rate. Do you think this is a good idea? And in Germany, we get all the publishers, I think it was half a year. And now it's hopefully getting easier and easier to do more countries.
Cool. Any other questions for Nikolay or Kris? All right, so challenge for you gentlemen. How should a publisher with 250,000 unique visitors, free content as a way to maintain those visitors, and insufficient CPM revenues, how should they... Ad blockers, yeah. Of course, and crappy native ads, and what else can we throw in there? How should a small to medium-sized publisher proceed in the paid content game in 2016? Best answer of the
best
day.
Answer of the day. If you don't, I mean, you can obviously enhance the user experience by adding more banners to the home page and making it glacially slow. No, that's not it. You need to understand what your USP is. What's unique about the content that you produce? I mean, and would you read the content that you produce? I mean, put yourself in the shoes of a reader. And same applies not just to the content that you produce, but same applies to the products that you release. Would you use these products? Are you happy when you go to the site and it loads, it takes 6, 7, 8 seconds just to load, and there are 17 banners around it? So that's the key, and if you zero in on that niche, if you zero in on that passion that the readers will have with the content that you produce, then you can start experimenting. It's engaging with the readers, it's engaging with the advertisers, it's going beyond sort of traditional. Oh, I'll throw in programmatic in this, or I'll work with ad agencies. No, it's what can you build as partnerships. Every direct relationship that you have with the reader, every direct relationship you have with the advertiser is a potential partnership in the making. I think that's it.
Good. Kris, your thoughts on
a couple
Medium?
Thoughts. First and foremost, you have to trust your content, right? You have to create content that is compelling. If you aren't doing that, you're going to be in big trouble no matter what. But creating content that you trust and then layering value add or premium services around that content is a way to step into it gently. We've seen a number of horror stories of people say, I've got a limited user base, let's just turn them all into paid users, right? And before you know it, they have no business left at all. So thinking about, all right, we've got a free user base, how do we earn their trust to gather more information about them? Let's get them to give us an email address, right? Let's get them to give us some demographic data, but asking questions over a period of time. So you can take them from free to freemium. They're now identified, you can track their actions back to an individual. From freemium, the next step is to work on transactional models. Buy the article, try and buys are fantastic, couponing, but getting them just to buy once. And the idea of seeding a credit is fantastic, right? We're big supporters of give them something that they can give right back to you just to engage in the model. And then from a transactional model, moving them to some kind of recurrence. Subscription is great. It's easy to plan for. It's a flat revenue stream, but so is recurrence. We have many, many clients that are not subscription services that have consumers come back and pay them every month a different amount, pay them every second month a different amount for a particular article, for a particular news feed, for a particular video clip. So creating the idea of recurrence at a stratified level of content, premium content, and then last but not least, bundled content, bundled services. The idea of working with third parties that have complementary services. The big media companies have a true advantage here. If you look at, I spoke earlier today about Hearst and their print assets at Cosmopolitan and turning that into a video service online that's subscription. But it doesn't have to be inside the four walls of the company family. It can be other content providers that are complementary, creating packaged premium offers that they couldn't have access to otherwise. But it's that stepping through the process to earn the trust of the user, to gather more information, to then present the right offer.
Great. What do you think, Alex?
I should have talked to you years ago, because then we wouldn't have needed to find that out ourselves. But yeah, we try a lot of these things. And one of the things that I like is that when a user spends just a couple of articles, buys just a couple of articles, at some point he's going to spend more than what an issue would cost. And we kept the price of an issue, so we know the user never spends more than a whole issue. You could also see that as an upgrade. So if he buys one article, maybe he doesn't want to be bothered with buying separate articles now and then, and he can just buy the whole bundle. And when he spent enough to get a subscription, we tell them, why don't you take a subscription right now? And with one click, then you take a subscription. That's something that we're going to start doing later this year. So we try to build in these levels, and I think it's very important that the news, I think, will be free. I think the news, we are not able to monetize the news. We are able to monetize the background, the longer stories, but it's very important to not, I do not like meters because they give the impression that the content is free. And what we do is exactly the same thing, namely give you $2.50 and then we take it back from you, just as you say. But it gives you the impression psychologically that the content is valuable, that it's paid for, that it's worthy. And in a world where my friends have never ever paid a single euro for journalism, that is something that we need to start doing, if only psychologically, to give people this idea that some content is worth money. And that's why we are doing this weird, give you $2.50, take it back again. Because we want to instill this sense of value. That's why we show all of the articles in the original branding with all of their fonts, and we license more than 300 fonts to show articles in the way they're supposed to show, so you can see that Cosmopolitan looks like Cosmopolitan magazine. But you got to stay very, very, very close to this. So yeah.
Great. We've got a minute left. Questions? Questions? No? Awesome. Okay, I've got one more for you. Real quick, what is a brand out there that you readily, without any whinging or maybe a little bit of complaining, pay for? Because it just provides such a great content experience, be it like a WSJ Plus or something like that. Go.
You're sighing.
You can say WSJ Plus.
No, well, I'm sorry, I'm not a WSJ audience.
Yeah.
No, I don't pay for. Well, I don't pay for anything.
Clearly unrehearsed.
Yeah, I pay for things that are relevant to me, and none of the things that that offer paid subscriptions provided that value that I felt that would give that relevance. So I use a lot of the freemium models. So it's Spotify, but it's the free version of Spotify and
Right.
stuff like that.
Cool. Kris, how about yourself?
For me, I actually already am a WASJ Plus member, so that would be the one. There's obviously value in that to me. I'm also subscribing to sites that are very specific to hobbies I enjoy, cycling, working out, fitness, those kinds of things. And I have 3 of those going right at the moment. So if it's specific to me and I can gain value out of it, absolutely, I'll pay for it.
Cool. How about you, Alex?
I love The Economist. I love how they compress and compress and compress more and more information until it's really, really short. And that it's like the best thing that you can do for me. Yeah.
Nice. All good examples to use and be inspired by. How about a round of applause for our awesome panel?